Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now it's time to talk Shokugeki no Soma, or Food Words, chapter 302. How much complaining are you guys going to hear from me this chapter? I don't know. We'll have to see how we go in here. It's just, again, I think this is one of those times where we can talk about just the technicalities here. It's a mixed bag. It's really a mixed bag, because there's some things I really like in this chapter, and there's some things that I really couldn't care less about. And then there's just some things that only reiterate points that have been made before. But this one of the big things here, I think, it's going to be the treatment of characters, because, like, really, we have enough ammo to say, like, hey, author, you're not really giving these characters the fair time. And, you know, there are always the arguments that you can have, like, you know, it's interesting when people do things differently. But it's different when you're an author is doing things differently because he thinks this is a pretty cool thing to do, versus he's doing things differently because of desperation. And, you know, I'm not totally convinced that the author isn't in desperation mode right now with his series. It's just, at the same time, the Shokugeki no Soma author has been making it very hard for me to even figure out what exactly is his thought pattern here. Because, man, like, yeah, Shokugeki in the last couple of weeks, man, you guys have been there, you guys have been listening to me try and figure things out here. I'm still very, very confused. But yeah, let's just get into the chapter. So, you know, this chapter turns out to be the Megumi chapter, because last time I wasn't thinking, I didn't think Megumi was actually going to get her time, right? I didn't think she was actually going to get to have a match. As it turned out, she did have a match, but then as it turned out, it wasn't really much of a match, because Megumi didn't really get to show off her cooking. So we ended up in a really weird middle ground for what Megumi was doing in this arc, based on, like, what I thought was going to end up happening to her character, versus what, you know, like the ideal of what could have happened to her character. Although I will point out that the author still did follow the pattern of having the four characters facing off against one of his people. Right now, the only person that's left on Asahi's side is the one that was right behind him when he was sitting on the couch in front of Irina. It's either Soma or Irina that are going to deal with that one. But, you know, so far he did follow pattern here. And, you know, honestly, that's like one of the big problems, is that the author established patterns and he didn't follow through with some of those patterns, right? Like, just when it comes to Asahi's inner circle, you're told these guys are so super cool. In this chapter, you're told that this guy is so super cool, and then he just gets throttled just immediately by Megumi. Now, the author has done something where the Megumi-Asahi fight is going to probably showcase Megumi's cooking, maybe? We've already seen what happened to Tsukasa. The author might just totally ignore it. But at least if we were to get that Shokugeki between the two of them, we could at least see what Megumi was doing in this one. Like, the author is, like, trying to make things equivalent, but, you know, I don't think they are ultimately equivalent when you're looking at just how this story is progressing. So, you know, I'm kind of rambling, but the thing that I kind of enjoyed was the fact that we skipped the cooking. Because, as you guys know, it's kind of hard to talk about cooking. And this guy had claws with seasonings in it. And it's like, I'm not going to lie, I thought that was pretty alright. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought, okay, cool that this guy's from an assassination family. That's neat. But the cooking got skipped for Megumi. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that was going to be the outcome anyway. I personally don't care about the cooking all that much. But then it's like, well, the author cares about the cooking. The fans probably care about the cooking. I mean, it's a cooking manga. So it's very interesting that we have started skipping, you know, the Shokugeki no Soma, like, the thing. It's funny that we're skipping the thing. I find that hilarious. That's what really scares me the most, is that the author is giving up the thing that makes his manga unique, right? Like, that's gone. Mind you, we still get the Foodgasm panel, but it's funny. It's funny to think about that. And then you look at Megumi herself, who is this character who I think has been shafted before. I think the author is always trying to give her accolades even though he has to destroy her. Like in the Regiment de Cuisine, she like lost to the little dessert girl, but she won that moral victory of just being like, oh yeah, there's potential in here. And it's like, no, we're not judging for potential, we're judging for who's good and who's bad. And Megumi only made her like, Megumi, you know, you guys were there. It's interesting that Megumi's always had this character, and now we're going into a situation where Megumi's skills are not properly judged. We only see an outcome, and now she's going to go up against the man that destroyed Tsukasa. It's just funny. And I did read some comments, and it does look like the Megumi fans are kind of sad. But, you know, in the perspective of, if the author wants to get through this arc in, like, let's say 8 chapters, this kind of thing that we're seeing in this arc with Megumi just speeding through her Shokugeki and then having to face Asahi, it makes sense to me that this is happening on such an expedited timeline if the author is trying to get to a particular spot to just end this arc. And I think that's fine. In the terms of if he actually has a deadline that he's trying to get this thing done by, then, you know, it makes sense. Because, like, really, when you look at the arc otherwise, there were a lot of narrative notes here. Like, it's cool that Megumi cares about Irina. It's cool that one panel you have of Megumi saying that she's going to get really mad. It's cool to see or to know that Megumi could beat one of Asahi's inner circle with what we assume was no effort. And apparently, according to Asahi, it was just total, utter domination. So it's like, alright, it's cool to know that Megumi is that cool. It's just unfortunate that we couldn't see the hows of how she is so cool. And honestly, I've mentioned this before, but I think hospitality as Megumi's freakish talent, it just ain't good enough, man. I think the author was really stretching there, because we've seen hospitality with the way that Soma used it, and I don't see where this verges into a superpower. And so it's just, you know, like, I think when I read that, it makes me feel like, okay, you know, author, I think you just couldn't come up with things for Megumi, and I think that's why you skipped it, but the author must have something in his back pocket if he's going to give us an Asahi versus Megumi in the next chapter. I think that'd be very interesting. One thing I did find funny was that Asahi was all like, oh yeah, you're not going to be able to beat him. So like at the beginning of the chapter, like he was drumming up the suspense because he was saying like, oh yeah, you're not going to get past this guy. And I found it funny how quickly that was deflated. That was pretty interesting from the author's point of view. Oh, sorry, that was pretty interesting for me, like looking at the author like, what are you doing, man? Like, you set it up, but then you like subvert the expectation, but you do it in one chapter, so it's like, you know, again, there's those points for subverting expectations, but at the same time, you don't know why he's subverting the expectations. So it's just, it's always so interesting. Shokugeki no Soma is so interesting to follow right now. This is just, it's so novel. It's so novel for me. So, you know, what's gonna happen, like, by chapter 310? Is Shokugeki no Soma ending, or is it not? Well, guys, like, honestly, I don't know, man. I have no idea. The author is really zigzagging on this for me, because, you know, where on one hand you have Tsukasa getting defeated, you have Takumi getting proper time, but then you have Takumi getting just throttled by Irina, then you have Megumi throttling this guy. You know, next chapter, if the author doesn't show the Megumi cooking process and only just goes to another Tsukasa thing, then I can be a little bit more confident, like, yeah, okay, he's rushing. But, you know, at this point, I'm not sure about this thing ending in any number of chapters, like ending as a series. I'm still feeling like 310 might be right around where this arc ends in general. Like, I feel like Asahi versus Soma, we could get it at 308, maybe, if not earlier. But it's just, it's interesting overall. Anyway, I guess the one more thing I should talk about is just like, Megumi was really good for this chapter. She was very outspoken and I really appreciated it for her. But then, you know, there was just the whole Asahi Irina thing. Yeah, I feel that it's a terrible situation that Irina's friend has to go and deal with the guy who's making her upset. But at the same time, it's like, Irina should be able to like be able to see that her friends are concerned about her. So I'm not a, like you guys know, I'm not a really big fan of the development that's occurring with Irina here, and you know, to fix this we have to take down Asahi, but yeah, I don't know, man. My big question now is like, are we gonna get the Megumi versus Asahi fight next chapter? It makes it look like, yeah, maybe, but I hope we don't. And if we do, I hope it's 2 chapters at least. At least give Megumi the thing that people want to see from her. They want to see her cooking. They don't want to see her just beating people. Like, I think one of the nice things about Shokugeki no Soma is the judging process. Like, you want to see why people are saying why these characters are so cool. Like, oh yeah, this is really cool because, you know, they're using mathematics, or, you know, they're using gastronomy. You remember, like, back in the autumn election, like, what was really cool was that all the guys in the Polar Star dorm got their own personal monikers, and it was neat. It was neat to see that kind of stuff. And now the author's kind of stripped that away, and that kind of sucks. But oh well. Guys, let me know what you thought down below, and until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.